Hey guys, it's Thorin. I hope you all are well, surviving in your houses and sheltering in place. This is a video response to a two-part video that appeared on Joey Morris and Benebell Wen's channels. Part 1 is on Joey's and part 2 is on Benebell's. I'll link them below. They're both very long videos. I ended up watching all of both of them because they were really fascinating. Benebell also made timestamps, so if you want to just look at chunks of it, you can do that. But generally what they were talking about was negativity on the internet and kind of the expression, I think it was Joey who said it first, the expression of being on the spiritual front lines of YouTube. And we could expand that, I think, to other platforms. But they were discussing what it's like being a creator today, all of the changes that have taken place on YouTube. Why is it that a lot of the longer standing folks have gone, particularly to sites that have paywalls like Patreon, and also how that in the long run impacts how people think about witchcraft. They got into the whole like aesthetic conversation about witchcraft and, you know, where are the thoughtful content creators, where are the advanced practitioners, where's the deep shit, right? That's not exactly what they were talking about, but just kind of segueing into that. Why does pagan YouTube look the way it does? And I think we could expand that out to talk about, you know, pagan Instagram and pagan Facebook, and the pagan blogosphere. And I just kind of wanted to weigh in and add a couple of things to that conversation. First, I want to echo the sentiment that like being a content creator is emotionally very difficult sometimes. I've been on YouTube for about 10 years at this point. I've been blogging for longer than that. And as my platform has grown, especially since I published traditional Wicca, or since Llewellyn published traditional Wicca, I didn't actually do any work once I wrote it. There's definitely been a shift in my comfort level producing content. And some of that shift is because of changes that I'm making, because now I have to consciously make marketing choices. And you can look back at my videos and you can look back at my Instagram and you can see the point where I'm like, oh, marketing brain now. Like you can tell. And you can tell if you just float around on YouTube, like who's selling something, who has to do the self-promotion thing. And that's not a judgment, it's just the reality, I think, of being a writer, being an author, being a teacher, having some kind of spiritual service to offer. So there's those pressures. But then also, and this is where they mostly focused, the amount of negativity that I think a lot of creators are subjected to is really kind of staggering sometimes. I get a lot less than a lot of people, and I think that's because, I don't know, I think part of it is because my platform isn't as big as some people's. Part of it is that, like, I'm white. Benebell talked a lot about her experiences being Asian and how she's had to deal with some things because of, just because people are racist. I think, like, I'm in my mid-30s. Like, I'm obviously not like a beauty queen or whatever. Like, I think I come off as kind of a regular person. So I think, like, I escape some things. But like, it still happens. And I would say that at times on some videos, on some blogs, on some, sometimes it's actually the majority of the feedback we get. To give you some ideas, like, I moderate comments to some extent and there are spam filters in place. A lot of things are filtered out, but it all still lands in my inbox, right? I still see all of it. And these aren't even just, it's not even criticism. Like, these aren't critiques that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, like, reasoned, thoughtful people who have some objection to something I've said and want to have a conversation about it. I'm talking about people just saying inflammatory, sexist, like, bullshit, awful things, because most of the time it's either because I'm a woman or it's because I'm Wiccan. Those two things. I get a lot of, like, bro-y kind of edgelord dude witches who think that because of those two things, because I'm a woman and because I'm Wiccan, I couldn't possibly have anything worthwhile to say. So there's a lot of that happens. I do get a lot of comments on my body, right? For good or ill, right? Like, honestly, like, from my perspective, getting a lurid comment about my boobs really isn't all that different from being called fat. Like, both of them register as negative, right? So, like, I think sometimes people think they're complimenting me and they are not. Yeah, so, like, dealing with those kinds of things. Honestly, like, I think that we're living in a moment now, I think, where people, I don't even want to say that people are sensitive, because that's not even what I really mean. I don't want to diminish, like, the actual work that's going on in marginalized communities when we talk about voice and own voices and platform. Like, this, none of that has anything to do with this. When I talk about people being sensitive, it's really more about people's ability to think and approach critically. The understanding that if I say something critical about, for example, a book, I do a lot of book reviews, that is not a criticism, a personal attack on the author. Like, that kind of distinction is increasingly difficult for people to make, which, by the way, is why you don't see negative book reviews. If you're ever just like, wow, I'm cruising over on Pathos or on Instagram and everybody just loves everything, it's because of the social consequences of writing even critical reviews, let alone negative ones. There's a lot of pressure to appear a certain way. You know, in these communities, you never want to come off as being negative, right? Like, you'll get a lot of flack for that. You don't want to come off as looking like you're in competition with another witch just because you have something critical to say about a blog post they wrote or a book they wrote, like, whatever. The pressure to always look like you're loving everybody indiscriminately is honestly, like, it's really stifling sometimes, and it absolutely has an impact on what I do or don't say. And that goes for sharing personal practices too. I think increasingly people don't share pieces of their personal practice, and a lot of that is because people just shit on it. Like, no matter what it is, people just shit on it. So I think people are kind of building micro-communities. I think that's one of the great things about Patreon, is that you create a pay barrier, even a very small one, and people self-select, which means it instantly eliminates trolling. It eliminates the rando hate speech and the bullying and, you know, the sexist comments and whatever. Like, that's why I went to Patreon. It really wasn't about income. I mean, I work a 40-hour job. My husband has an income. Like, we're like, we're like TV working Americans, whatever. I wasn't trying to make a buck teaching witchcraft or selling witchcraft or, like, you know, moving into being a witch boss or whatever. Like, that's fine for people who want to do that, but, like, my intention was never to leave my straight job. What I wanted to do was create a barrier so that I had a space where I could talk about things more openly with people who actually cared, which is why my Patreon is $1. Like, I really just wanted the smallest amount of money that Patreon would allow me to ask for. And honestly, like, a lot of that money just goes towards other people's Patreons. It allows me to save some additional things for equipment and whatever. My computer died, so I'm in the process of saving for a new computer. But primarily it was about grappling with my comfort level and what I share online. And I'm seeing that more and more from creators who I've followed for a long time. The other thing that their videos made me think about, which didn't come up, was the internet. The internet erases those barriers, like what I was saying. And what it's done for me personally is it puts writers, it puts teachers, it puts prominent leaders in your community kind of on the same level. Like, everybody has a platform, and some people have more followers and some people have louder voices and whatever, but by and large, like, it's a lot easier to just contact somebody. It's a lot easier to just see what somebody is up to in their daily lives, and part of that is really wonderful. But the fact is that I've lost a lot of my heroes in pagan communities. I think we all have. The internet makes it a lot easier to see people's bad behavior, and you know, like, I think about some of the writers who I admired, teachers who I looked up to, you know, from a distance, like as a young person, or even, you know, a few years ago, like some of the people who I really admired from afar, getting to see them close up and being like, oh man, I can't believe they just said that to that person on Facebook. Oh man, I can't believe that they just posted this. And like stashing that away in my brain, and it just, a lot of it is heartbreaking. So, and maybe the answer is that we shouldn't have heroes, okay? But, you know, we do. So, I don't know. I sometimes wish I didn't have the kind of access that I do. I don't know. So, all this to say, the internet can be a treacherous place. It's wonderful, and I don't say any of this to like wigging anybody out. Like, I'm not going anywhere. But I do find that I have less of a desire to post on YouTube and on Pathos, and you know, like on Instagram I'm averaging like once a week, and I've had better experiences on some places than others. But the internet is such a grab bag, and I don't think that we always appreciate how much emotional pressure there is on people, not just content creators, okay, but just everybody sharing their lives online. Like the pressure that's behind that, I think it really like does something really deep to us. So, you know, I want to be careful of that stuff. And hey, you know, like, it's worthwhile to go out of your way to say nice things. If you've got writers, teachers, content creators, vloggers, like Instagrammers, whatever, if you've got people who've really helped you, or who you really admire, or who you just think are really cool, or, you know, you can relate to something that they said, let them know, because you don't necessarily see some of the shit that they deal with on the other side. So that can be really bolstering for a lot of people. So be liberal with your praise. And be fair in your critique. Like, I always welcome people having different opinions than me. Like, I hope you do. To me, that's the sign of a healthy community. But there's a way to have a conversation. There's a way to be critical. Whether or not it results in a discussion, like, there's a way to express a contrary opinion without, you know, just calling somebody a fat whore, or like telling them that their tradition is moronic, or like whatever it is that people actually do. So yeah, be safe, be well. Sorry about the mini rant. Go watch the other two videos. They're both much more eloquent than I am, and have a good day.